About a week ago, my wife was getting ready for work and I wanted to make us some breakfast. And we also have a then 7 month old, now 8 month old daughter. And I didn't want to just throw her in a chair because she was playing on the floor and so she was having a good time. And the kitchen is right next to the living room, so I decided I would just step in there and start making breakfast, but I had to keep an eye on her. So periodically throughout that time, I'm making my breakfast and I'm peeking around the corner and I notice she's entertaining herself. She's playing by herself with her toys, just not really doing anything crazy, just throwing them around, but she's having a good time. And it just started to hit me like that is solo play. So my wife is an occupational therapy assistant, and she's talked to me about different things. She's in the pediatric field, so she works with kids, and I just asked her about that because I know she's talked about different skills and milestones, and solo play is one of those early milestones that you look for. You want your kid to be able to play by themselves. And I just thought about that and I thought, man, how cool that my my daughter is learning this thing at the same time that I am. So I looked into it a little bit more. I asked my wife a few questions. She gave me some things, and then I looked online, and I put together some things that solo play, why it's important for kids, and why I think that we can use those things that we see in children and they still apply to us. So I wrote some things down on some note cards and I'm just gonna flip through them and we're just going to these are my thoughts. I'm not the occupational therapy assistant in the family. I don't have any kind of serious training. So these takeaways for me are just things that they're just my intuition after seeing them. So the very first thing is that it enhances focus and concentration. And I just kind of looked at the summaries, and it encourages focus of attention on a single activity and improves concentration. So I have found this to be extremely true. I've talked about in some of my other videos how I feel like time just flies by while I'm playing, and it really helps me hone in at a time in the world where it's so easy for our attention to be pulled in a million different directions. This I'm finding this to be true, and you've probably been able to tell by the way I talk, I definitely have some form of ADD or something. Just my brain is constantly moving and my mouth is struggling to get everything out. But I've noticed when I sit down and when I play, I'm in it, and I'm really working on that ability to concentrate on one task. And you're also kind of balancing and managing other tasks, but we'll get to that as we go through these other things. So that first one is that it enhances focus and concentration. The next one is what I was just talking about. It's executive function or executive functioning, and this is time management and staying on task. So rather than being pulled and just going in a million different directions, this helps kids and babies like really like focus in. It goes kind of in tandem with the enhancing focus, but it helps you adapt to new situations and switching gears, and then planning and prioritization. So these things, like, I'm not a planner. I'm not someone who is like particularly organized. So it has been really cool for me. I've got like all of these books that I'm keeping up with. I'm staying on task. I'm like switching gears, all while maintaining focus on this singular task that has all of these different gears that are like just turning at the same time. It's a really cool juggling act solo play is. And that's the same thing that kids learn at a young age is, how do I do this? Like, how do I make all of these things work together? And this is like a executive function is a very broad, like sweeping, um, just topic, or it's not a topic, it's just a thing. But it's something that I think, like, when my wife started telling me about this, she, like, everything that she was saying about it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is just solo role playing. This is what we do when we solo role play. So executive functioning, that's a good one to think about, all of the things that tie in as you're learning as well. Like, I know some people are very skilled and already, like, adept at the hobby, but for those of you who are new, just know that, like, we're learning this. Like, you're learning a new skill. So as, like, have grace with yourself as you're entering into this new thing. The next thing is self-regulation. So I wrote down, like, what in my mind in babies what it looks like, and in adults what it can look like. And again, I'm not a professional, but in babies they learn to manage their own emotions and impulses. So while they're playing, they kind of, like, they're experiencing all these things for the first time, and they like, if you've ever been around babies, they get upset at stuff super randomly, and then like, I'm constantly pulling my daughter down from pulling up on random stuff. So, like, during that solo time, they learn as well. Like, they don't need constant input from an adult, but so when they are by themselves, they're learning to manage those things. And in adults, I think that it can be useful to point out our tendencies. So I think that emotions and impulses in the world of solo role playing are, I think, just sticking to your comfort zone. But that self-regulation in the world of, like, solo role playing, I think can look like, okay, I know that I tend to do this. This is my impulse. How can I break out of that? Like, how can I, like, understand that a little bit more? And again, it's kind of like a loose idea, but that's just kind of what I took away from self-regulation. Develop problem-solving skills. So babies practice figuring out solutions to new challenges. It taps into new creative options, and it helps you think outside the bun. So this one is huge because you're interpreting roles, you're living the life of multiple characters and NPCs all at the same time, and you're experiencing stuff that, like, if it's a random table or a randomly generated situation, you wouldn't know the answer to that right away. Like, in my game right now, I have an insane situation that's presenting itself that I'll do a recap of that here in this next video, but I don't know how to deal with this situation at all. But I'm like, okay, I've got to solve this. Like, these are real in my mind. These are real people that I'm playing as. They're in this world, and they're being hit with this absolutely crazy situation. So their brains would start turning. They would have these, they would be trying to solve this problem. So in the same way babies are learning for the first time, we're learning for the first time every time we encounter a new situation in a game. And it's cool, and it's not just the same thing over and over again. So it encourages you to, as I wrote last, think outside the bun. It's not all burgers. Some of these things are tacos. So you want to dress that differently than a burger. You don't want a taco with mustard on it, probably. Maybe you do. I don't know. Somebody try that, actually. Somebody try a taco with mustard and let me know how it goes, because I don't want to be the person to do it. But if you try it, let me know, please. But this one is It's a very straightforward thing, and one that, like, as soon as my wife mentioned it, I said, oh, okay, yeah, that's a direct correlation for sure. So the next thing is it fosters creativity. You see this all the time in kids and babies, but they're out there in their own world just doing crazy, weird stuff. But they experiment with different ideas and scenarios without external influence. They learn to do more with less, and they use tools in new and unexpected ways. So you may see a kid doing something like you bought them a specific toy, or they're playing with some toy and you see them playing with it and you're like, that's not what that's for at all. But it can be used that way. So that's what I'm encountering as well. Like, you can use random tables in completely different ways than what they would normally be intended to do. Actually, multiple people have kind of suggested that the way, like, when you build out settlements or when you build out dungeons, you can use those tools elsewhere in the game as well. Like, you could roll up a random dungeon room, and that could actually just be like a house or like a building that somebody's going into, and it turns out it actually was a trap or a treasure room, or like has a boss in there. And like, you can adapt and use tools that you already have at your disposal for a lot more than you think, and you don't have to buy every book under the sun to be able to play the game that you want to play. It just takes a little bit of creativity. And I say a little bit. Sometimes it takes a lot of creativity. But every one of you is so much more capable than you think. Like, not everybody is the most creative person. I would say I am a pretty creative person. So it's easy for me to say this and kind of put it out there on you. But know that I genuinely do think that creativity is a muscle that you flex. You may not be great at it, and you may never max out that skill. You may never have a +5 in creativity or whatever. But limiting yourself to say, like, oh yeah, I can only do choose your own adventure kind of books, that's not true. Your game may not look like everybody else's, but you have creativity and you can foster that by actually playing. Like, if you set a kid in a crib or a pack and play or a chair and you just leave them there with nothing to play with, they aren't going to develop creativity. So you put toys in their hands and they may not play with it a ton. They may prefer just sitting there. But if you never equip them, it will not grow. If you never go into dungeons and delve, you will never gain the XP that you need to level up. It's real life is there's a lot of crossovers there, and so we can learn from babies. We can learn from them a whole lot because they're experiencing the world for the first time, and we're experiencing these worlds for the first time. I'm also doing, there we go, these worlds for the first time. So that's that one, foster creativity. And I wrote down some of the byproducts that, oh, there goes my dog. Sorry if that was loud. Maybe you didn't hear it at all. We're going to move on. Byproducts. So the very first one I would say is finding your own interests. I've had people ask me questions in the comments about different role-playing games and suggestions that I have. And the reality is I'm very new, but it's so cool. You see, like, people have interest in sci-fi or in more of a high fantasy or a low fantasy, and there are different things out there. So while you're playing on your own, you get to explore those interests and find out, like, is that something I actually want to do? So that's byproduct number one, is just finding those things. And you do that by being creative and using tools in new and unexpected ways. So finding your own interests. Then number two, I think, is exploration. You get to explore new products, new ideas, explore yourself. You get to, honestly, you get to learn a lot about yourself during this process, some of your own tendencies. Again, that self-regulation that was in there. And I think that's really cool. Um, Another one is developing new skills. Um, I think that we, like, all of these things, executive functioning specifically, me not being a very organized person, I am hopeful that through time and effort, again, I've only been solo role playing for a little bit over a month now, and I already can feel like growth in this area. So I do feel like that will translate to other things, and maybe this, like the journaling that I'm doing and the planning that I'm doing, or just like the flying by the seat of my pants in situations that I'm like, I have no idea what in the world I should do in this situation. Those kind of things will develop new skills that can like translate into either my group role playing sessions where I'm DMing and maybe I'll be better at like really improvising, or um, like building out worlds, building out cities, building out hex maps, things that I've not done a whole lot of or not done in the exact same way. This will develop new skills there. The next one is creative growth. I think I mentioned this in the Foster's Creativity, but you actually are creative. And I underlined are. I could have underlined creative or actually or you. Honestly, just imagine I underlined this whole thing for you where you actually are creative. Don't fall into the trap where you where you look at other people and you're like, "Oh, well, I'm not them," or "I'm not this person who does an actual play," or "I don't do voices," or "I I'm I'm not a great artist," or whatever. Yeah, some of those things are true. Surely, like, I mean, I'm not a voice actor. I'm not an amazing artist. I'm not um, doing like so many other things that I wish I was good at. But you limit yourself, and instead of actually playing, you just think, I couldn't do that. No, you can do that, and you actually are creative, and you'll grow. You will develop new skills. So play the game, do it. The next thing is time for yourself. And I have an 8-month old daughter. I have a wife. I have a job. I have responsibilities. Um, and so I get it. Finding time to do this is really hard, but it's worth doing. And even if it's 30 minutes, you could play in the bathroom every day when you go to the bathroom. And you could just play for a couple minutes, and you could play a fun game that spanned an entire year, the bathroom solo RPG, and it would actually be pretty cool. Actually, I don't know, that would be cool. So if you do that, please let me know. Um, I maybe we should all do it together. Just a year of bathroom role playing games, but it's time for yourself. It's time that you can spend growing and developing um, yourself and a hobby. And taking time for a hobby, I think, is way more important than people make it out to be. And so take time for yourself. And then the last thing is possibly, maybe you'll get smooth skin, because babies when they solo roll, they have really smooth skin. Actually, I'm pretty sure my daughter might have eczema because I have eczema. So, I don't know. That one's probably not a byproduct. But you know what? I'm new here. Maybe I'll have really baby smooth skin by the end of it. But there is one more important thing. These are my bonus thoughts right here. I think that solo play is best when balanced. I think that we're social creatures, some more than others. I do think that in the world of, if I had real life stats, my charisma would be a little bit higher because I really want to be around people. and I really want to talk to people. And I get that not everybody, this kind of moves into the next thing, so I'll just go ahead and go there. Play with others when possible. Um, and then I put right here, play solo together, question mark? Huh? Is that possible? I think so. And I also have ideas for that, but we'll get into those later down the road. So when you do these things, the last thing I put is share with the community what you are doing and plug in with others. This is it right here. One of the big notes that I saw when I was looking at solo play for babies and that just spending time alone doing stuff is that it's important for them to interact with others. When I made breakfast that one day, I wasn't just standing in the kitchen like, oh yeah, my daughter's gonna be totally fine. I checked on her and I made sure everything was good. And eventually she crawled up to me because she wanted to spend time with me. So in the same way, we as social creatures need interaction. And I'm not saying if you don't have a group that you meet with or play online with or anything like that, that you're doing it wrong. No. You can play solo and never play with other people ever in your life, and that would be totally fine. But plug in with other people who do the same thing. Like, go into YouTube comments on somebody's channel and say like, hey, I do this. Like, I've really enjoyed reading comments where some people are like, oh yeah, recently myself, I went and I did this thing. Like, that is so cool to me because you guys are all we're all sharing the same experience, but in vastly different ways. We all have different strengths. We all have different abilities. So we should share those with one another. Solo play is best when balanced. So those are a few of my thoughts. And I hope that you all have a good rest of your day. And I hope that you do take time to be a little baby. Be a little baby person. Get out there, roll some dice, play a game by yourself, and then take time sharing it with other people. Some of you may know a lot more about this kind of thing, about like the importance of children doing stuff on their own, and like understand this way more in depth than I do. So if you have any other thoughts, leave those in the comments, or leave comments about your own your own solo role-playing experience down there, and then we'll turn that into a social thing. So I brought it back around there. I did. Eventually, I brought it back around. And if anybody tries a taco with mustard, let me know. And if you guys want to start a solo bathroom playthrough, keep the details clean, I guess, for me. I don't want it to be super weird, but I think that would be cool. We can call it TPRPG, toilet paper role-playing game. And it's a game that you play on toilet paper. Alright, well, I've ruined this at the end, so I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and go out there and be a baby.